Go over some tips and tricks and basic skills in TinkerCad. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new document. We're doing a 3D design. All right, on your keyboard, holding down the Shift key and right-clicking on your mouse, again, allows you to move the camera around. If you just right-click and drag, the camera will rotate the work plane. Okay, Shift and drag is called pan. Right-click and drag is rotate. You also have the view cube up here, front. You click on the corner, and it will rotate things around. As I right-click and drag, you'll notice that view cube adjusts as well. But if I hold Shift, that view cube does not move. Okay. Let's pull in a basic shape. Let's bring in a box. You'll notice when you bring it in, you have all of these little resizing cubes. Okay. If I click on a corner, on one of the white corners, and drag, that will move both the x-axis along the bottom and the y-axis along the top at the same time. Okay. Let me go back. If I hold down Shift and drag, notice the box actually gets bigger in the z-axis as well. So we have three axes. We have an x-axis, we have a y-axis, and we have a z-axis. So this box is now 50 by 50 by 50. But if I just click this, that will only move it in two axes. This dot here, again, is my z-axis. Okay, so I'm going to start with that box over again. I can type. Let's type in 30. And if I hit Tab, notice that 83 is now highlighted in blue. Tab will switch to that other dimension for me. So Tab goes between those two dimensions. And if I want this to be 30 by 30, I can click here and go 30. Or let's go ahead and make this 10. Okay. If I click on this, I'm going to use Shift and drag, and I'm going to kind of go above it by right-clicking and pulling down. Notice this side-to-side arrow or up and down arrow here. If I hover over that and click on it, I can now rotate this box. And if you see my mouse is inside of this inner ring, it's going to go by those larger tick marks there, which are 22.5 degrees. If I bring my mouse to the outside here, notice I can go by individual degrees now. And if I hold down Shift, I can go by even larger chunks. Okay, so that is rotating. I'm going to undo that. Again, undo is Command Z or right up here on your toolbar up here, the undo. If I rotate my view, you'll notice I have a left and right arrow, which will rotate it this direction. I also have, if I go over here, a left and right arrow. So I can rotate this in a lot of different ways. In fact, I can rotate it in 3 different ways, all 3 planes. Okay, so there is a rotate. Now, one little caution here is when you do rotate, let's say if you rotate it by just a few degrees, it's very difficult to get it back to normal. So be very careful with your rotation and make sure you're snapping to the exact number you want, whether that's 90 or whatever you're needing there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring in another box. All right, so that's with rotation and resizing. Let's say we want to stack some things on top of each other. I brought in my box. Let's say I want this sphere. As I drag this sphere, if I have the mouse button clicked down and I hover, you'll notice that it kind of changes shapes. Let me bring something else to be a little easier to see. As I get to the side of this box, you'll notice how that pyramid is now rotating. Let's do that again. If I bring it in, I can see it's on this face. You can see it's now on this face and on this face. That's called the what is that tool? So let's say we want to stack something on top of each on top of this box that we have here. There's a tool called the Cruise tool, which is the C button. Let's bring in this pyramid, and you'll see how this works. I can drop it on this work plane. Okay, I'm going to delete that and bring another one. Or if I hold down that mouse button and I drag it towards this box, you'll see that that pyramid is cruising around or being attached to different faces on this box. So if I want, I can put that there. I can bring in another one and put it there, bring in another one and put it there. And you'll see that we now have those attached directly to those faces. Okay, so that's called the cruise tool. And you can do this with any of these shapes here. You can also do it with text. There we go, there's that text showing up. So I can use that cruise tool to attach things together. All right, so that's when I'm bringing in pieces from the library. Okay, let's take a look at these two shapes up here. Let's go ahead and bring in this roof. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to bring in this tool. Now, this is just a box, and this is just a cylinder. These are here because they're used very often. But I can make any of these tools a hole, which is what I have here. This cylinder is a hole. You see the gray lines here. Anywhere where this cylinder shape is touching this roof shape, you'll see that that gray shape shows through. Now, if I take both of those items, so again, I'm lasso selecting, click and drag. Okay, I need to see this blue outline, and that means I've got both things selected. I can double check that up here by looking at the shapes, and notice I have two shapes selected. If I come up here, I have two different options. These are new options that just showed up. Union group, if I click that button, it's going to join those two things and make it a union. And since I used a hole tool, anywhere that that gray cylinder was touching this roof shape, it has now removed the material that was touching it. I'm going to do the same thing. Let's bring this box tool in. And let's say we want to make that a little bit thinner. I can click this direction, and if I were to group those two things, again, you've got your union group, which is Command G. If I bundle group, that's just going to keep those two things together so that I can move them around together, but that doesn't work for the whole tool. So I would need to switch that over here to union group, and now that's going to remove anywhere that that gray box was touching this roof. It will now remove it. Now, because these two green things were actually one piece, it doesn't ungroup this. I can't get just this little tiny piece on its own. That's not, there's a lot of steps you have to go through in order to get that piece on its own, if that's what you're looking for. So that's using the hole tool. Let's look at it from using a different shape. I'm going to bring in this torus. I'm going to hit the D key. Very important. So notice that when I brought that torus in and then I rotated it, part of it is below what I call the waterline or the work plane. So what I need to do is I need to drop this, or raise it technically, but the D key will raise this to the work plane. So notice the bottom of that torus or donut shape is now there on the work plane. So once I have a shape selected, I can click on hole. And if I push this into that roof there a little bit, and I group those two things together, I'm using Command G, you'll notice that it can remove that type of shape. So you don't have to use just these two as a whole. You can use any of these shapes to make a hole. So I've got this little drawing here that I made. I can make it a hole, and I can drag it all the way through my shape. Select those two things and group them together. And now I have that cut out all the way through. Now when you're grouping, if you notice that you get this red outline, that means it's thinking. So if I hit that Command G, you'll notice everything turns red, it's thinking. The more complex the shapes are, the longer it's going to think about that grouping. So you might have to wait on it and just be a little patient. Okay, so I'm going to hit that delete key, and let's look at aligning some things. say I want this cylinder and this ball and this little piece here. Let's say I want these things to be aligned in a straight line up and down like this. So I'm going to select them. And if I hit the L key on my keyboard, or right up here, I have the Align tool. Notice you get these dots. Okay. So just like in rotation, I have 3 different dimensions that I can align these things in. So as I hover over these dots, you'll see these orange shadowy shapes kind of appear. If I hit this left dot, that's going to take the leftmost edge of all 3 objects and align them. You'll notice that these ones are now grayed out because all these objects are the exact same size, left and right. So if they're aligned on the left, they're going to be aligned in the center, and they're going to be aligned on the right because they're the same exact size. If I want, hit that L key again, to align them in this direction, okay, now rotating here, if I hover over this, click that, you'll notice they are now aligned that way. Okay. If I want them to be aligned this direction as well, where did that ball go? Well, since they're all the same size, that ball is actually inside here. If I click on solid, I can make that transparent. You'll see that that ball is hidden inside of there. And because they're the exact same dimensions, okay, this is a 20 by 20, this dome is a 20 by 20, and you guessed it, this ball is a 20 by 20. Okay. If we change this a little bit and do my Align tool here, okay, you'll notice that now I have the option to select left, center, or right because this orange shape is bigger. All right, same thing this direction. Now, one other one that we haven't done is in the Z-axis. Okay, I can take these objects and align them in the Z-axis. So now everything is touching at the very top. Okay, notice that that ball is on the ground. The cylinder is on the ground, but then this dome is off the ground. If I go in the center, you'll see everything is aligned in the center. So the Align tool is very powerful. You're getting things lined up. What else do I want to show them? All right, I got a couple other tools here. The scribble tool is exactly what it sounds like. You put it on your work plane and you draw with your mouse. It turns it into a 3-dimensional shape. You still have the ability to adjust your heights. You have the ability to change your colors, make it transparent, or use it as a whole. You also have the ability to scale it, shrink it this direction, shrink it this direction. Okay, so you can use it just like any shape. All right, good for making organic shapes. Okay, like for instance, if you wanted to make a nice puffy cloud. I'm not a very good cloud drawer. I don't know what's going on up here in this top spot, but or making outlines of shapes. Okay, so that is the scribble tool. The sketch tool. I really like the sketch tool because it actually leads us into what we do next year in Tinker Lab or CAD Lab called OnShape, where you're actually drawing a 2-dimensional shape. You have the ability to dimension those shapes. And once you complete the geometry, which is just an addition of lines here, you have now made a 3-dimensional shape because it then extrudes that shape. Your 2-dimensional sketch technically starts out as a flat sketch and then just adds some dimension to it in the Z-axis, and you now have a shape. So you can combine this tool with other tools or other shapes to, let's hit that shift key. Now, as you saw there, it's kind of hard to rotate in that direction, but if I would have turned my view, it's much easier to see where I'm rotating. So just changing my view makes it a little easier to do things. So if I use that sketch tool, I can actually zoom out and I can see what's going on here, and I can create now an addition to the original shape that was there, which was the dome, and now I have my own custom ice cream cone kind of a thing. Hit that D key to bring that up above, make these two match. Let's make them 10. Let's click on this Z-axis, make it 10. Oh, not one. Group these two things together. Red means it's thinking. Now I have one solid shape. Okay, so that is the sketch tool. Another one you'll use is the text tool. Now with text, there's really only 4 fonts, and within that, we really only use these two, sans and sans mono. Sans gets rid of the little serifs on the end to make this a fixed width text, meaning every element of this is the same thickness, which really helps when we go to print it. We like to use some bevel to make the text a little bit thicker, and some segments that kind of rounds that edge just a little bit, makes the text look a lot nicer when we go to print it. You can adjust your height here. I generally just adjust my height like this once I have my text